Hello, so I'm Abigail Mills and I am the director and founder of Rose and Thistle Social Limited, which is a social media marketing consultancy company. I work with service providers who want to ultimately stand out, sell more, and become impossible to ignore on social media. And I also mentor people who are looking to get into the freelancing space in terms of social media marketing as well.
That's great. You studied music at both the University of Aberdeen and the University of Glasgow. What led you to make the transition from music to marketing?
Yeah, so basically my whole life growing up, I was into music. I think it was like my whole personality growing up pretty much. I started kind of at music lessons and classes when I was about, I think as young as maybe 3 or 4, and pretty much continued that all the way up until my master's pretty much. So basically my whole life was revolved around music. I wanted to become a music teacher. I did a project I remember in primary seven, so I was like 12, 13, where I was, studying. I was going to study at the University of Stirling because they had a really good music program. And then by the time I actually went to go into university, they didn't do it anymore. So I applied for a couple of places, Aberdeen being one, got in there, and then was like, I need to make the most of this opportunity and kind of what opportunities outlie just kind of studying music. So I joined the cheerleading society and I also joined the concert band as well as part of the university. And while I was doing those, I was like, oh, I quite like the idea of being like committees and all that and kind of helping with the running of all these organizations and things as well. So the first one I got onto was cheerleading. So I was kind of captain for a year, apologies, a year. And then I went on to be vice president for 2 years. And part of that vice president role was doing social media for the Chilean society. So I kind of always liked dabbling. I loved posting online and kind of showcasing what I was up to. And I was like, oh, I quite like doing this, but kind of never think anything of it until I did my master's. And when I went off there, I got the opportunity to work with an events company. And kind of long story short, I got into this opportunity through volunteering at the Edinburgh Jazz and Blues Festival. But prior to that, I'd volunteered at the Aberdeen Jazz and Blues Festival. So there's kind of like interconnections there. This guy was massive, or was massive in the music industry, had worked for DF Concerts, was the kind of booker at King Tut's Wawa Hut, which is a massive indie grassroots venue in Glasgow. I thought he's a really good person to know. Spiral on, did my placement period with him. This was peak pandemic as well, so not much in the event space was happening. And basically, I graduated from Glasgow, and he said, "Do you want to be my head of marketing?" I said, "Yeah." The most I've done is post on society's social media channels. He was like, "Yeah, it's cool. We'll teach you. There's not much happening in events, so digital marketing is kind of where it's at." I was like, "Cool, yeah, I'll do that." Got into doing that. Really enjoyed it. Set up what is now my business Instagram page, but before it was a blog called Marketing in Scotland, where I basically just documented everything I was learning about marketing at the time and kind of my music past. I was working at a music school, still doing admin then. And then I was doing their social media. I was doing it with the events company. I was doing it for myself. I started doing it for a community project and accidentally kind of built a business, which is a bit unexpected. I started getting inquiries coming in saying, "Oh, do you like do social media for businesses?" And I thought, "Oh, well, yeah, I suppose I could, yeah, sure," and built a business. But now, I suppose looking back, a lot of the stuff from doing the society work, but equally my music course as well, and a lot of the kind of editing side of things that I do is really prominent in the work that I do today now.
And that's really amazing. And how did your university experience and your time at uni influence your confidence or mindset as a business owner today?
Yeah, it played a massive role. So I remember when I first got to Aberdeen, to begin with, it was not not my number one university I wanted to go to. It was actually my second last. I'm originally from just outside Edinburgh, so the thought of moving to Aberdeen was just like terrifying. I kind of lived in the same area my whole life. But honestly, it was the best thing I ever do. And if you ever get the chance to kind of move out of your hometown, I highly recommend it because it just opens up your mind and being able to meet new people and all that. It's just so transformational, honestly. Um, so yeah, I as much as I was a performer and I did piano was like my main instrument while I was studying. I do performance all the time. I hated things like public speaking. I hated kind of like going up to people and being that awkward, like, "Oh, hi, I'm Abigail." Like, it's horrible when you go to uni. Especially, I didn't know very many people as well that were going to Aberdeen either. Like no one from my school was going, but there was like a couple of people that I kind of knew of that were there. So it was pretty much a brand new start. But in our first 2 years in the music course, I don't know if they still do this now, but I really do hope they do because it set me up so well for the rest of life. Is we had to do presentations, like group presentations, every 2 weeks for the first 2 years of the course. And as much as I would dread it and the thought of standing up in front of like, it wasn't even that many people, it was like a seminar, so like what, 15, 20 people, my palms would be sweating. We were such a small course as it is, so we were quite a family knit group, but oh, it was horrible. But now looking back, that set me up for being able to speak in stages in front of like 100 people, doing these podcasts, doing master classes online, being able to just like go onto my Instagram stories and talk in front of 3,000 people. Like, don't bat an eyelid now. And I genuinely think that's from the experiences that I had while at university. And then chucking myself into these committees, turning up to the like societies, like the first time you go to a society, I remember turning up at Aberdeen Student, no, Sports Village, sorry, I'm just not at ASV. um, so I remember turning up to ASV, like doing my first trial of cheerleading and going in and knew no one else that was there. And I got sat next to this person who was a mechanical engineer, and she was like chatting to me how she'd done cheerleading before, and I had done cheerleading before, and we kind of bonded, and then grew a friendship from there. So it's amazing to just like see getting over that hurdle of chucking yourself into these spaces makes such a difference. And I think it's the exact same in business. You just kind of have to like get over that fear and do it anyway. And it's a big prominent part of kind of what I took from Aberdeen to what I do now.
Yeah. And let's talk about your business, Rose and Thistle Social. What
Yeah.
inspired you to start Rose and Thistle Social, and how did you identify a niche in supporting service-based businesses through social media?
Yeah, so kind of as I mentioned before, it was a bit of an accident that it all came about. It was purely an Instagram blog that I was just documenting about everything I was learning in marketing at the time, what I'd taken from kind of managing the social media channels at university, and kind of what that meant for other people. I then started kind of building a community of people, learning from some of the big names. So, like when I was first starting out, and this is more so for, I suppose, anyone that's looking to get into marketing, they're great people to follow. But when I was first starting out, things like Pretty Little Marketer, so Sophie Miller, who runs that, she's got a massive community now online. She was just starting out. Rachel Higgins, who's also from Scotland and runs Because of Marketing, she was just starting out. Girls in Marketing was just starting out. And sort of the big one that I still keep in contact regularly with today is Grace Andrews, who is now the, get this right, I think it's brand and marketing director for Flight Studio and was Stephen Bartlett's social media manager and things. So we were all starting out at the same time. So it's amazing to see kind of where that's all grown and kind of where we've all ended up. But these people were so inspiring to watch. So I was like, if I can just get a fraction of what they've got, I'll be more than happy. And it sort of just grew from there. And I'd done a lot of work with service-based businesses. So obviously, kind of like sports is it's not a service-based business, but it's more of a service than selling a product or anything. And like I said, the music school I was working at, they got me in to do some things. The events company I was doing, they were service providers. So that was just like a niche that I was really comfortable with. And I think it's been 5 years since I started kind of freelancing and then building the business. I think looking back, especially now, for me personally, I find product businesses so hard to market because nowadays you can't just post like a pretty product picture and that's it. There's influencers and user generated content and all this side that kind of comes with it. Whereas service providers are a lot about building personal brands and really showing those kind of business owners at the forefront of things, which is what I love doing. And again, I think there's experiences from university. I remember going, I think it was the Star Awards. Don't know if they still do this now, but I went up for one of them. And part of it was like a LinkedIn workshop that I had to go to. And I remember sitting in this seminar room, I think it was in McRobert, if I remember right. And the lecturer was like, okay, so how many of you are on LinkedIn? And everyone put their hand up except me and the person opposite me. And she was like, why are you not on LinkedIn? Like, you're in your fourth year. This is terrible. Blah, blah, blah. I was like, yeah, I'll get to it. I'll get to it. But actually, looking now, I'm like, oh, why did I not have a LinkedIn? Like, it changed my life in part of way as well as Instagram has. And yeah, it's funny now looking back of where all this has kind of stemmed from. But yeah, getting into that niche was purely from just my experiences that I had in the past.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And talking about communities and influences, you're also the co-founder of the Scottish SMM Girls Club. What
Yeah.
inspired you to build this community, and how has it helped social media marketers connect and grow in Scotland?
Yeah, so this has been like a passion project that myself and Amber from Marketing with Amber had. So we first met, it's quite a wild one. So Amber was like my first follower on Instagram, and it just so transpired that she was staying in Edinburgh. She was at Napier University studying business with marketing. And we just got chatting online and we said, oh, when all these lockdowns lift, like we'll have to meet in person and it'd be so nice to get people together and all this. And we kind of spoke about it for years and years, but obviously that was 2020. And last February, so 2024, we actually got it off the ground. So we just noticed a gap in the market in Scotland for these sort of community-led events. You see them all the time, Manchester, Birmingham, London, but there was nothing happening kind of, I suppose, north of kind of Birmingham, or even, I don't know, no, Manchester, that's more north than Birmingham. My geography is terrible. So yeah, we've never seen anything like this before. So we're like, you know what, we'll start it and we'll kind of see what happens. So we started off by having an Instagram kind of group chat, which I think when it was at its peak, maybe had like 70 people inside it, which was crazy to think there was that many social media marketers in such a small space. And people as far up as like Inverness. I think we even had someone in Orkney and the sort of islands up above. And then we had people as far down as sort of the borders into Ayrshire and things as well, and Dumfries and Galloway. So it was covering like the whole of Scotland that we had. We then, this is sort of like key 101 on how to kill a community at the same time. So we moved our community over to Slack because we thought, oh, people are getting lost in the Instagram DMs. Like our DMs were quite full and other people were just getting lost. So we thought, right, we'll move it over to Slack, keeps it nice and separate. Turns out no one likes using Slack. It's not a nice channel to work on. That's quite a controversial opinion because I know a lot of people use Slack these days, but for us, it just killed our community. I think we got like less than half the people moving over, and we basically had to start from the ground up again. So we recently, in the last sort of 6 to 8 months, moved it over to WhatsApp. So we now have a free WhatsApp community, which is back up now. I think someone told me the other day it was at 55 people. So we've got 55 social media marketers in there. We do quarterly events just to bring people together. And it's more than just people that, work in social media marketing for themselves. We've got freelancers, we've got people who are working with big businesses, we've got people that work in agencies, we've got students as well who are kind of looking to get into the marketing space and want to network and meet some more people there. And it's just turned into just such a great project of a place where people can turn to if they need any help, if they're having client problems, if they're looking for new tools, or just genuinely, we do a lot of job advertising in there. With my LinkedIn's full now of kind of job adverts for social media marketers. So like last week, we seen that Scottish Rugby were looking for 3 social media managers. So we put that in there. There was like a big drinks brand as well that was looking for someone. We just put that in there because we know there's a handful of people who are still on the job search. So I would recommend if you are looking for a social media marketing role, if you're not in our community, do reach out because it'd be great to have you in there. And we post, like I say, all these opportunities, meetups, questions, anything we can do to basically help you in your marketing journey.
That's great. Well, as you're highlighting the importance of community sport in the marketing space, what advice would you give to someone trying to find or even build one?
Oh, great question. It's definitely not as easy as it was when I was first building. Like when I think of like my Rose and Thistle marketing Scotland community, that was peak pandemic, where it was much easier to build a community
Mhm.
than it is now. But what I would say is how we built kind of girls' club and things is purely through connection building. So a lot of it comes from, you kind of just have to put yourself out there, be willing to kind of share some of your stories and things, but equally being willing to connect with other people kind of like off the cuff. So I do a lot of like searching on LinkedIn for people. I do a lot of connection building in terms of like engaging with people's content, getting in touch with them through DMs. And I think a lot of it is quite proactive in terms of how we do it. Yes, once you get to a big point, it does happen organically. And we still every so often get people that said, "Oh, I've seen your post on TikTok," or "We've seen your posts on Instagram. We'd love to hear more about it." But a lot of it comes from us being proactive and actually trying to find these people. Because 9 times out of 10, we tend to find that they're not actively searching for communities like this because they tend to not think there's anything like this in Scotland. So it's like us having to put like the flag up and like, "Hi, we're here. Do you want to come in? Like, you're more than welcome to." And 9 times out of 10, we've had great feedback saying like, "I can't believe this has been here for so long and I didn't even know about it." So yeah, it's a like big part of it is us kind of reaching out to people because we don't actively promote Girls Club. We don't like have separate social media channels. It's purely done on our social media channels that we do it. So it kind of comes in a flurry of every time we have an event, we kind of shout about it. We get an influx of people in, they come to the event. It's a great vibe. It goes a bit quiet and we can keep everything in the community. Then we open up again. So it's just kind of like back and forth. But it's definitely a big part of what we love to do. And I think a big part of what social media and having a business is nowadays is having a community around you.
Yeah. And what do you think businesses get wrong most often about social media?
Great question. So I have like this sort of like keynote that I always do about 5 mistakes business owners make and how to fix them. I think number one has to be the fact that they're not using social media as well as a marketing funnel, as a sales funnel. I remember going, I think it was Business Gateway, not that I'm, giving them shade, but I went on a call with them and they had said, "Oh, you're only using Instagram to make money." And I was like, "Yeah, like I make 80% of my sales probably through Instagram. The rest maybe like word of mouth and email and LinkedIn, but predominantly comes through Instagram." And she was like, "There's no way you can be making cash like this on Instagram. There's no way. Like you need to be doing it on LinkedIn." I'm like, "No, you don't understand. There's so much money to be made on Instagram that people just forget about." And I think a lot of business owners tend to just post about, "This is what I do. Here's how I can help. Here's a nice testimonial," but actually don't think about actively selling and kind of talking about, great to post a testimonial, but like, how did the person feel before they met you? What have you done to them to transform them? And what has been the result of that transformation? People do quite surface level, but like we want to go deep in. So that's probably one of my main ones that people don't use kind of social media to sell, particularly on Instagram, using stories and DMs to sell. I think a lot of people still hang on that. And another one, again, I'm quite Instagram focused, but I think the same goes for LinkedIn, is not optimizing your profile enough to actually tell people what it is you do without them having to scroll endlessly to see what it is you do. Um, we want it like as clear as possible on people's profile of like who you are, who you help, and how you do it. If you've got that straight in front of me, I'm much more likely to then start scrolling. Equally, if you've got a lovely picture of yourself and your face, I'm more likely to connect with you than if it's, a logo or if it's like, I don't know, a really blurry picture that's heavily filtered. I just want to see the real you. And I think a lot of people don't showcase that enough on Instagram either.
Yeah, that's some really interesting stuff. And since you work with lots of clients, is there could you give us an example of a client transformation you're especially proud of?
Yes. I think there's been a fair few. I think one of my main ones recently has
Mhm.
been, so I work with a women's health private clinic in Edinburgh. And when she first came to me, she was really still starting out. She still works in the NHS and does private work part time, really like kind of helping women in terms of women's health and things. And she was like, "Oh, I really need to start getting like some bookings in. Like, I've started this and I'm terrified that it's not going to pick up." So we really doubled down on kind of using Instagram as a place to be like a hub of information, so much like value packed inside there. And within sort of 6 to 8 months, she's now getting booked out at least 2 to 3 weeks in advance. So she's actually seeing that return on kind of showing her personal brand, showing that she's the expert in her space, all because she's just putting herself out there online, and being able to get that amount of kind of bookings in. It's not a cheap service, and a lot of the businesses I work with are kind of turning over 6 to 7 figures annually. So like they're not small businesses. Well, they are, but they aren't in terms of the turnover. So seeing the impact that like one marketing channel can have on these big businesses, it's just quite, yeah, it's amazing to see the result. And having that with her when she was so fresh, and then seeing how we've been able to kind of show her up as the expert. She's getting opportunities left, right, and centre, and she's being seen now as like the number one person in Edinburgh to turn to for kind of women's health needs. I think that's probably been my most rewarding one. I've had some throughout the past, like I did a kind of pro bono work with a community shop in a local village. This was when I was first starting out, so everything I was doing was absolutely free for them. But what we managed to do was actually bring in thousands, I think it was up close to 50 or 70,000 worth of contributions to this community shop through their community purely through social media. So like the fact we were able to bring in that much revenue for this community project was incredible as well. So they're probably like my two that I, yeah, love kind of reflecting back on.
Mhm. That's great. And you mentioned earlier that having connections is really important. How has networking helped you grow your business and brand? And how can students take advantage of networking early in their careers?
Yeah, it has been transformational in everything that I've done. And I think a lot of people think because kind of work on social media and by myself and like a lot of my team's outsourced, so it's purely just me working like in the business. I think a lot of people think that I just get everything through online and Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook groups and all that, but actually the in-person networking that I do brings in the best connections because it's building that trust straight off the bat. If I meet someone in person, I can, really get to know them, then take that relationship online through Instagram, through LinkedIn, through email, whatever that may be, and really nurture them and get to know them even further. I can see a bit more behind the scenes of what they're up to each day, really get to know them. And then 9 times out of 10, it's much easier to, sell them something. Equally, I don't just shove things down people's throat and make that sound like that's all I do, but it's building that connection up. So when they need your help, the first person they think of is, oh, I remember Abigail from Rose and Thistle Social. She does this, and or she's got a friend that says, oh, I'm really struggling with my social media, and she can go, oh, well, I met Abigail, and she does this, this, and this. I think it'd be really beneficial for you. Honestly, in-person networking, like this week, I'm already going to I've got one networking event happening this week. I've got another one I'm going to next week. I was at one last week. Like pretty much every week, I'm getting out of the house to meet new people. And I would say for students, it is the best thing that I did still when I was at university as well. Like I mentioned, I kind of chucked myself in the deep end in terms of joining the societies, which is a form of networking that you don't really realize is networking because it just seems like a bit fun. But like especially when you come on to like community positions, you're pretty much like helping grow a community, but in a networking format. Like when you've got to stand at that stall on the Freshers Week and you've got to try and get people into the societies and things, like that's all a form of networking that you've got to do. And those skills are so transformational for when you leave uni as well. And I think taking up as much opportunity as well outside of university is a big one that I did. So, like I said, I've seen an advert for the Aberdeen Jazz and Blues Festival. They're looking for someone to like help with box office and flyering. So I thought, oh, just put my name forward and see what happens. It's going to take a couple hours out of my evening on a Wednesday night to go to the Blue Lamp and hand out some tickets.
Mhm.
And those connections I built there helped me kind of future down the line. That's what got me into the Edinburgh Jazz and Blues Festival to then start my career in marketing and meet these connections. And I think making the most of chatting to people that are around you as much as you can. Any sort of opportunities that come in through your courses. I know for music, we had a lot of like guest composers come in. We had a lot of work with like PhD students and things who were like mentoring people and taking a lot of the kind of music societies and things. Really get chatting to them and finding out kind of more about their journeys and how they've got things working will really help you in terms of kind of what it's like to network on the outside as well. But yeah, definitely take up as much opportunity as you can in terms of kind of even if that means you have to do some free work every now and again, it will benefit you in the long term.
Yeah, that's really good advice. And looking back, what's been the most rewarding part of running your own business?
Ooh, I think one part is just having the flexibility. That's quite a rewarding part. The fact that, I can wake up at every time I want. It sounds quite cliche, but like I'm not, I'm putting my hand up, I'm not the 5 a.m. club. I am not that business owner. Not that is not me. But equally I can, I can work at weekends if I want. I don't have to. I can take a Wednesday morning off if I want. I can go full ham until 11 o'clock at night if I need to. Like there's just that flexibility there. I think nowadays, especially when working on like when you get outside of university, and a lot of people are offering like flexible working hours and things these days outside of uni. You don't realize actually just how good that is because I don't know if you find it as well, especially kind of when I was at uni as well. You tend to find a lot of students like working later at night and like kind of going into that late night period. And at the time, I'm sure like mum and dad used to think we are absolutely mental. The fact that we'd be like in libraries at like 11 o'clock at night and like we should be in bed and all this kind of jazz. But actually, like that's when I perform at my best is when I'm at kind of late night working. So being able to have that flexibility, not have to, check in with someone and is that
Mhm.
okay that I'm working that late? Like that's been really amazing. In terms of sort of like material things that kind of came off the back of it, think being able to get a mortgage with my now husband was quite a rewarding one. Like the fact I got that off the back of my business was quite mental because I didn't think this would ever be happening. If you told me, like it's 10 years ago this year that I started at Aberdeen, if you told me that I would be able to do all this now, I'd be like, what? Oh, that's so bizarre. Like, no way. I thought I was gonna be a music teacher and like I'd be on my summer holidays right now, but it's just yeah, amazing to see how it's totally panned out a completely different way. Um, Anything else that's been rewarding? I think the luxury of being able to work anywhere is also quite a good one. Like we were in Dubai earlier this year, and although it was our honeymoon, we're quite obsessed with working, me and my husband. So like we had our laptops out sitting on a balcony, like messaging people. It's like, wow, isn't it crazy? Like it sounds so cliche, and I know Dubai is like the whole big thing these days, but like it's just crazy that you could go anywhere and do that from anywhere around the world. It doesn't really matter. So yeah, those are the sort of big ones for me, I would say.
Yeah. And what are your favorite memories from the University of Aberdeen or your time at Aberdeen?
Oh, I've got so many, I feel. What are my biggest ones? I think some of my biggest ones happened when I was part of cheerleading. Like I remember the first time we'd got like our like first place trophy at a big competition. We were kind of like national champions. And the year after I left, they came and became like grand champions and everything. Even looking back on that was just incredible. And that was the first time that had happened in the society. So those were quite good ones, and just kind of seeing how we built the society up. It was very new when I first joined. I think the cheerleading society had only been running for like a year or two prior to me joining Aberdeen. So like it was quite amazing to see that we were quite a big role in of its projection and things. So that was quite a fond memory. And I think just being around creative people all the time. I hadn't really had that at school. Like I was like there was a handful of us that did music, but like in the end, I think I was the only one that stuck out, kind of doing music all the way through school. So being able to be around those creative people all the time was really inspiring, and seeing everyone's journeys and where they came from. And like I said, we're only a course of like 50-ish people, so like in comparison to a lot of the courses at Aberdeen, we were really small. So you kind of knew everyone, and we used to do like even across like all the years, we used to do like I can't remember what they're called. It was something like the big music mashup. And it was like first year all the way to master students would get together and we just go on this mad night out and get dressed up. And oh, it was just good fun. So I think those are some of like my fondest of memories. And like being able to like live without your parents being nearby, all that was quite fun and things as well. And there was good times behind all that. And I lived with two lawyers when I was in Aberdeen for pretty much my whole time there. And yeah, amazing seeing the dynamic between like the kind of hardcore work they were doing, especially when it was like exam time and they were like head in the books, whereas we didn't really have any exams being music students other than our practicals. If you took performance, everything else was like submission based. So they would be like head down in the book, stressing out, and I'd be like, I'm on my way out, goodbye. So having that was quite a funny dynamic. But yeah, amazing people that I met, I suppose, has been yeah, good fun memories.
Yeah, that's great. And the last question is, what advice would you give to your younger self, say from 10 years ago when you first started university?
Um, I think take as much opportunity as you can. I kind of wish I'd started doing it earlier on in my university career. Like if I was in like second year, even first year, to be honest. Which sounds a bit daunting because I know you're like 18, 19, and that's the last thing you think you want to be doing. You just kind of think for a lot of people just want to be out partying, which is fair enough. You don't get another chance to do it again. So I think being able to put myself out there a bit more is something I wish I did a bit more of. But equally not stressing about the whole, you know, people pleasing and, the fact that yeah, you are there to study and you've got to meet grades at the end of the day, but like there's so much more to the university experience than just the course itself. And I think people should really take to grips a lot more of that, if they can, is just make the absolute most of the opportunity that's in front of you. Because ideally it's the only time you want to be doing it if it can be. And you'd never get those like 4 years you're at Aberdeen. Like I can never live that lifestyle ever again. But take the most of it while you can live a lifestyle like a student lifestyle because you can get so many great opportunities and make the real most of the 4 years you're kind of at university.